What roles do research and regional partnerships play in job creation and economic growth? We'll talk to Randy Berridge, president of the Florida High-Tech Corridor Council, about how innovation is contributing to economic development. Next on UCF Metro Center Outlook.
This program is made possible by funding from the UCF Metropolitan Center for Regional Studies, where government leaders, business executives, and academic experts come together to discuss major issues facing the state of Florida.
Hello everyone, welcome to UCF Metro Center Outlook. I'm Diane Trees, Director of the UCF Metropolitan Center for Regional Studies and your host for Metro Center Outlook. The Florida High-Tech Corridor Council is home to hundreds of students, scientists, business people, and other professionals dedicated to pushing the research and commercialization envelope. Today we'll talk with Council President Randy Berridge, but first, let's learn more about Central Florida's thriving innovation industry.
Florida's high-tech corridor spans 23 counties across the state and is anchored by the region's three main universities, UCF, USF, and the University of Florida. The corridor program pairs industry partners with university researchers to develop commercial technologies. The students who are brought on board to participate gain hands-on, real-world experience.
So our students get to work with full-time staff members from high-tech companies to solve problems that are very pertinent to their success in the marketplace. You get this kind of synergistic effect where they work with local industry and produce some really good intellectual property.
Since the inception of the program in 1996, the Council has partnered with some 350 companies on more than 1,200 research projects. Rini Technologies is just one of the local companies that has benefited from the Corridors program.
We had funding from the military to get the company started, developing these technologies for the military, and we utilized the matching grants program from the Corridor initiative to increase the amount of research we were doing, to collaborate with the university, and to build a bigger, more accelerated technology development program. So it was incredibly beneficial at the start. The Corridor basically provides a pathway for companies to partner with the university to fund collaborative research so that our graduate students end up working on something that has a much higher likelihood of transitioning into a product a lot quicker. And it also gives them a pathway to employment.
The high-tech corridor is indeed training our future researchers, scientists, and engineers, training the workforce of the future. For Metro Center Outlook, Buddy Pittman reporting.
Randy, welcome to the show today.
Diane, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you and the WCF Metro Center Outlook. Thank you.
The corridor is actually celebrating its 16th anniversary this year. Can you talk a little bit about how it came into being?
Well, Diane, in the mid-90s, a company in Orlando, a little company called AT&T, was faced with losing an expansion of a major facility offshore. That was $1.4 billion and about 1,500 jobs, an expansion of a facility. If we'd lost that, we wouldn't get the latest technology, and if we didn't get the latest technology, we'd lost $1 billion that was already invested in the 1,000 jobs that were already here. We had negotiated some new city, county, state incentives to try to make the difference. Wasn't enough to be competitive in the world. But what made the difference was UCF President John Hitt and USF President, then President Betty Castor. We approached those two fine presidents and said, is there anything you can do to help us? We do not have a research capability offshore that we need. The two of them got together and came back and made a very substantial commitment over a 10-year period. That made the difference. We got the expansion. What we did as a team, we did for a large company. And it was John's vision, part of his #1 Metropolitan Research Partnering University. Part of his partnering vision was, if we can do it for a large company, we can do it for companies of all sizes. So he reached out to President Castor, and she said, yes, we can do this. We can put our strength together of our two universities. Think about that, two universities in the mid-90s, presidents talking to each other to try to make a difference and diversify the economy in our region. I had just taken a package from AT&T, and John called and said, we've got this idea of taking what we did for a large company and figuring out how to do it for companies of all sizes. So the credit goes to UCF, President Hitt for his idea, President Castor, now President Genshaft, of course, for agreeing to partner with another state university. A few years back, we added the University of Florida. So now we have President Hitt, President Genshaft at USF, and President Machen, along with a number of companies that are part of our council, with a mission to help attract, retain, and grow high-tech industry and the workforce to support it, all coming from John's idea of being able to use the strength of our universities to help companies of all sizes.
I think a lot of people still see the corridor as Tampa to Orlando, but you serve a much larger region, as you mentioned, with the University of Florida.
We started out with the footprint of UCF, its service area, as well as USF. Well, that's 21 counties, from Tampa to Orlando to the Space Coast. The original name was the I-4 High-Tech Corridor, but we quickly realized that there were a number of counties in our now 23 county region that were not exactly contiguous to I-4. So when we incorporated, thanks to Charlie Gray and the Gray Robinson Law Firm in '96, we changed the name to the Florida High-Tech Corridor Council. So we literally go from Sarasota and Citrus County on the west to Flagler and Brevard County on the east, and the 23 counties in between.
You've taken a very strategic approach to this. You have a matching research grant program, you have marketing elements, and you have workforce development. And you've done this with a regional approach. How has that transformed the 23 county area that you serve?
The idea that we can bring together our partners, our economic development partners, our Chamber of Commerce partners, state colleges, community colleges, workforce boards across the region. Roger Penn gets credit for the slogan, when you're in our meeting, you leave your ego and your logo at the door. And it works. It works in part because we're state funded, so we have funds to invest in these partners to help them with their mission. And our mission, again, is to not only partner with companies on research projects, but to share that story with constituents not only in our region and our state, across the U.S. and across the world. In fact, last year we were recognized as the best example in the world by the International Economic Development Council for what we do. And the main thing we do, the main thing we spend our money on, are these matching grants research projects. If I may I give you an example?
Yes, I wanted to ask you if you would explain a little bit about, because you have actually taken $56 million, invested in research, leveraged that, and it's been over $1 billion in impact economically. So tell us a little bit about that program.
Thank you for doing your research. Let me give you an example of Dan Reaney, Reaney Technologies. Dan came to Central Florida, to the University of Central Florida on a water ski scholarship from Canada. He got his undergraduate degree, his master's and his doctor's at UCF, and he graduated, but he's a Canadian citizen, which means he didn't have a green card. So Dr. M.J. Swallow and Dr. Tom O'Neill, as they were beginning the UCF incubator, Dan Reaney was one of the first occupants of that incubator. Dan Reaney was also the recipient of our corridor funds to do matching grants projects. We average about $50,000 a grant. So here's how it works. The company does not get our money. The company gets the expertise of our professors and our students. So in that $56 million you referenced on 1,200 projects, we engaged 2,400 starving graduate and doctoral students.
That's very helpful.
Think about it. It is really what makes sense. So the company gets the best of the best in terms of our professors and our students to do the project they would like to have done. So in this case, we put up $50,000. Dan Reaney and his team would put up $50,000. You'd use the total to do the research that he wants done to improve his products. Dan's been so successful. At one point a couple of years ago, he had more than half of the federal grants, they're called SBIR grants, in the state of Florida, because he could use our money as the match that the feds require, and the feds require a match. So it was a great symbiotic relationship, so successful that when Dan graduated from the incubator, from the UCF incubator, he opened up shop 15,000 square feet of manufacturing space. He's hired about 30 employees, average payroll 70,000. So there's a great example of a company using the expertise of our hometown university to help them improve their product and service. And in the process, then the end result is we hire employees, we help that company succeed.
Why do you think that the combination for university research with workforce development, why is that so fruitful?
Well, President Hitt again gets the credit. I shared with him that we wanted to take a little bit of our corridor funds, which came to us in the mid-90s thanks to then incoming Senate President Tony Jennings and incoming Speaker of the House Dan Webster, who realized the partnership that President Hitt and President Castor were going to set up. So along the way, we were able to get state funds to do this. So you have a major corporation like AT&T supporting other companies with the two universities, UCF and USF, and the new funds to do what we're doing. And I said to President Hitt one day, if we don't help these companies get the technicians they need, then your idea of being the #1 partnering university, you're not going to quite get there because you're not helping the companies get the technicians they need, nor giving those technicians a chance to get a baccalaureate eventually. So John said, makes sense, we'll use some of our funds. So we have funded 7 associate degrees with 7 different community, now state colleges in the very technologies in the industries in our region, the very technologies that our 3 universities are most aligned with. So here you have a relationship using a little bit of our state money to help our state colleges with the right associate degrees. They were charged with bringing the industry to the table to define the curriculum. We paid for it.
You have a lot with the economy. A lot of small businesses are really having difficulties thriving. What initiatives does the corridor have in place that help small businesses thrive?
Well, Diane, again, UCF gets the credit for the idea. One of the best examples, I'll give you 2 of them, if I may. One of the best is the UCF Technology Incubator Network, now just the UCF Incubator Network. Tom O'Neill, as the story goes, you don't mind me sharing this with your viewers, do you? Tom O'Neill came to, in the 1999 or 2000, somewhere in that time frame, came to Dr. M.J. Swallow, VP of Research at UCF. Now it's VP of Research and Commercialization. He said, MJ, I'd like to start an incubator. And MJ says, well, how are you going to do that? And he said, well, I got 15,000. And MJ goes, what are you going to do with 15,000? He says, well, you're going to match it and give me 15,000. Now, you got a doctor in physics and a doctor of engineering. He says, well, now you got 30,000. What are you going to do with 30,000? He said, well, I'm going to go to Randy in the high-tech corridor. And they have a way of matching things that make sense. And I think this incubator makes sense. So MJ and Tom were very good. And so we put up 60,000. So the first UCF incubator was funded with that corpus. In 5 years, it became #1 in the U.S.
Yes.
As determined by the National Business Incubator Association. Orange County, Seminole County, Osceola County, Lake County.
You branched
they've
out.
all invested.
Yes.
We've branched out. They're now the #1 incubator network in the U.S. They have created some 4,000 jobs total, more than 150 companies. And the neat thing about it is the county and the city money has returned more than 6-fold. We just did a study on that. So not only are you creating jobs and helping companies start and grow and create jobs, the main thing is you have to ask, of the companies that have graduated, how many are still in business? All of them.
All of them.
It's the quality of what they're getting in the UCF incubators.
Why is it so important that we keep our graduates here in Florida? Economically, what does that mean for us in the state?
Well, if you look at the matching grants program, where again we've engaged 2,400 of those students in our 1,200 projects, and if you look at the incubators where these students are also engaged, a stat I heard recently was in Florida, perhaps like in other states, but in Florida, our state covers about, on average, 75% of the cost of a baccalaureate degree. The student or the family or some combination covers the other 25%. With that investment, it's obviously incumbent on us to figure out all the ways we can to keep those students here. So in our world, giving them a meaningful research experience with a high-tech company
Right.
is one of the best things that we can do. And the pride that we have is when Tom O'Neill and MJ would share with us that the student that was working on that research project, we'll pick on Dan Reaney again, was in fact hired by Dan. That is special.
So it works out for the students, the research projects, and then the companies that come out of that. I've heard you talk about downstream impact. What concept? What are you referring to when you talk about that?
Well, we call it the Habermeyer effect. Bill Habermeyer, when he was CEO of Progress Energy, President Genschaft and I had given a presentation on the results of our corridor. And when we'd finished, he said, "You're leaving money on the table." Now, I spent 31 years at AT&T and 29 in management. Two of those years, early on, running an accounting. Well, excuse me, I had good people that ran the accounting operation that reported to me. You're leaving money on the table. So I said, "Well, Bill, what money are we leaving on the table?" He said, "It's real easy. Here's your money. Here's the company's money. You do the applied research project." He said, "I'll bet you 6, 9, 12, 18 months downstream from that project that additional value accrues to the company or the university or both. And if it does, you have to take credit for it, because had it not been for that project, that downstream value would not have happened."
So it's a ripple effect.
It's a ripple effect. The best example recently comes from Kent Buchanan, VP of Research for Harris Corporation, one of our council members. They did a study, and over 14 years, 28 projects, we invested about $2.5 million. They invested about between $7.5 and $8 million. $100 million downstream value to Harris Corporation, which means employment, which means hiring our grads, which means continuing success for that company. Just one example of the 400 companies
Right.
we've partnered with.
The sustainable economy that we're trying to achieve.
Exactly.
I read an article recently that Governor Scott had been talking to some of the universities in the southern part of the state, potentially to form a corridor there. What are your thoughts on this?
It needs to happen. And I believe that the previous chancellor of the state university system, Dr. Mark Rosenberg, who's now president of FIU, along with the president of FAU and University of Miami and Broward State College, Dr. David Armstrong, they're going to make it happen. And what is really neat in our state, in terms of, we have 15, now going on 16 years of success in what we do, mainly investing in companies through our applied research program. The leadership in the southeast part of the state have seen that, and they've elected to partner with their economic development organizations, their chambers of commerce, to start an effort that they envision that'll go from Miami up to Orlando in terms of another high-tech corridor. But they're patterning it after what we've done. You can't ask for a better compliment, and I believe Dr. Rosenberg is going to succeed with his team in doing what we're doing.
You'll be able to work together? Is that
He was kind. I'm not the best in terms of what happens in academia, in terms of the relationships and politics, but he called President Hitt and said, "Your team has demonstrated this great success. Would you mind loaning them to us for a bit?" So Ed Schoens, the director, as you know, of economic development for UCF, Roger Penn, Curly Penn, past chair of the UCF Foundation, good friend, and members of his team. We have actually made several trips to Miami, as well as about 20 conference calls over the last year and a half to help them start up their program.
So actually you're setting up an infrastructure. What about partnerships and corridors that are not in our state, that like California, Massachusetts, North Carolina? There are other corridors around the nation. Do you partner with any of those?
We've been honored to share the dais, Ed Schoens and a number of our team members, the State Science and Technology Institute, a national organization, as you've described, being able to share the dais with those folks and show what we're doing, and at the same time learn what they're doing. Project Jumpstart in Cleveland comes to mind. Rick Weddle, who just came down recently as head of the Metro Orlando EDC,
Yes.
came from the Research Triangle, and the fact that he recognized that they had been in existence many more years than we have, but they were looking to us for some of the leadership in terms of what we've done, and they were looking to copy what we've done. And when you get a call from the leadership in Silicon Valley saying, "We're hearing about what you're doing, and it's special, tell us more about it," or you get a call from the mayor of Yankton, South Dakota. Now think about that. Not sure where it is, but he called and he said, "We're thinking of creating a high-tech region between the University of South Dakota and South Dakota State. The geography is about the same, and we'd like to copy what you're doing. Any problems with that? And we said, absolutely not. Will you help us? We said, sure.
The national exposure is wonderful for you. Companies in the high-tech corridor have always been cutting edge. Where do you see the next big trend for the Florida high-tech industry? Where do you see that coming from?
Diane, I think twofold. We've witnessed most recently last week the announcement by Panetta that we're going to be going through a BRAC in 2013, maybe again in 2015. And yet in the Central Florida part of our corridor, in fact, come to think of it, across our corridor, you've got a heavy concentration of modeling, simulation, and training. So as the military looks to save costs on equipment, on fuel, et cetera, in their downsizing, they're going to depend more and more on modeling, simulation, and training. That's headquartered in our great state, in our region. The bulk of it in Metro Orlando, but it truly is across the corridor. So those folks are looking to be able to do more business to help our warfighter. But let me pick on Jim Jordan, JHT. Jim is an example of companies in our region looking to diversify. So with the advent of Medical City, brought in part, major part by UCF and its partnerships with the Tavistock, with the Burnham, with Nemours, with the Veterans Hospital, with UF, all those partners, you see the companies adapting to that to say, we're going to continue with our success in modeling, simulation, and training for the warfighter, but we also see the opportunity to make a difference in bio, life sciences, medical. And the second thing I would point out is the strength of the robotics industry, robotic surgery.
Celebration has a
Celebration
huge,
has
right.
one, but
And
there's
Tampa
a similar in Tampa.
has opened one, right.
In Camels. And so President Genshaft and President Hitt have asked, can we use the strength of the corridor to enable those folks to chat together, have a meaningful relationship. I met just yesterday with President, CEO of ORMC. And the idea is if we're going to be truly successful, then why not be the world center of excellence in robotic surgery and training and make it truly corridor-wide with all the organizations that can come together, as well as our three universities, UCF, USF, and UF.
Randy, thank you for being on the show today. I've been talking with Florida High-Tech Corridor Council President Randy Berridge. Before we leave, let's see what journalist William Holstein said about Central Florida's booming high-tech industry on a recent episode of UCF Metro Center Outlook. You say, you use Orlando as case study number 3.
Right.
What makes Orlando an illustration of this cluster concept?
Well, you have a very interesting crossroads effect here between the role of the military and NASA here, and you have large entertainment facilities, Disney, Universal, Electronic Arts is here, and you have a university, UCF, sitting in the middle of that, these cross currents. So you have robust flow of ideas coming out of these idea factories, as I call them. And so you have the capacity here to have 4 different clusters co-located, which could be explosive growth if you could ever manage it just right. You have your simulation and modeling cluster, you have a laser cluster, you have digital entertainment, and you have medical or biotech. So where the real exciting things come from is when different disciplines and different people and different cultures butt up against each other and create new ideas. The trick is, how do you commercialize those ideas? How do you get the ideas out? And how do you create the incubators, but also the venture capital? And how do you build companies?
You talk about the incubators, and that's one of the strengths I think that UCF has brought about. What is it that makes UCF, what have we done right?
Well, incubators often are not really oriented toward equipping an entrepreneur with the skills that they need to get out and go out into the world. Many incubators are oriented toward, we want those people to stay here because we want them to continue to rent the space, and we don't really want them to leave. We want them to continue getting research grant after research grant. And so that actually slows down the formation of a commercially viable enterprise. So you need a very carefully balanced set of incentives. You need to have people in these incubators who are getting good inputs, and so they're meeting CFOs, they're knowing what CEO does, they're learning how to raise money, they're learning how to put together a business plan, and then they're encouraged to go out into the world and take their ideas and and do something with them.
So it's a balance for
It's-
everybody.
right.
It has an aspect of winning from it.
Right, exactly. It's a win-win situation where the incubator raises money through SBIR, the Small Business Administration,
Yes.
and puts the right people together, and then shoves them, shoves them out of the nest, so to speak, rather than trying to encourage them to stay in the nest.
Until next time, I'm Diane Trees.
This program was made possible by funding from the Metropolitan Center for Regional Studies, where government leaders, business executives, and academic experts come together to discuss major issues facing the state of Florida.